Welcome to Garden Wise Adventures. My name is Malie, and today it's a little windy. I hope the sound is okay, and it's a little bit warm, but it's not as warm as it's going to be the rest of the week. We're supposed to hit the 90s. Today is in the lower 80s, but I wanted to get some of my garden projects finished before the heat hits. And today I wanted to bring you along with one of them, and that is to install my brand new Vegega metal bed. Now, if you've followed me for very long, you know that I love the Vegega raised metal beds. I've had them for about 3 years, and this is going to be my 7th bed. Now, let's show you my beds and tell you a little bit about why I like them so much. Now, this is the area that we're going to be working in. I have another garden area up on this hill, but all of the beds on the hill are built like this. These are my block raised beds. Now, I went with block instead of wood because I am a single mom, and I wanted to build beds that I wasn't going to have to build again. I knew that I wasn't going to have a lot of time or energy as I got older and as my kids got older and busier. So I built block beds. Now, this lower area right here used to all be grass, and it is, I think this is going to be its 4th year. Yeah, this is going to be its 4th year. So this bed is 4 years old. And these beds here, I think, are on their 3rd year. Now, I absolutely love these beds. There's many different configurations. The first bed that I put in was this round bed for my Jerusalem artichokes. I wanted to build it so it would contain them. I actually did it a little wrong. I've had to continuously dig around this bed to pull the Jerusalem artichokes out because they go down through the bottom of the bed, which is buried about 2 inches into the ground, which makes it about 19 inches tall, and come out around the sides. So I think this fall what I need to do is dig out the bed entirely, put wig cloth on the bottom so that the artichokes can't escape, and then it should be good to go. Other than that, it's been a great bed. These 2 beds right here have always housed my tomatoes, but I think this year we're going to put squash in them. And these beds are 8 feet long by 2 feet wide. Now, this bed over here and these beds right here they're actually the same bed. They're just configured a little differently. And that's another reason why I like them, is you can configure the beds differently. So this one back here is either 8 by 4 or 6 by 3.5. I need to go look at the measurements. I thought they were 6 by 3.5, but then I was reading later that they're 8 by 4. I've never measured them, and I've absolutely loved them. So this bed back here is going to be squash. This one's going to be squash. We've got tomatoes, and let me go show you my 2 other raised metal beds. And then I put 2 more over here that I have on the south side of my house in an unused area. Decided to make it a useful area, and it's been perfect for tomatoes. These beds are the 6 by 3.5. Absolutely wonderful beds. Even though this area over here is extremely hot, I've got a temperature sensor up here just so I could kind of measure the heat back here because it is on the south side between 2 houses. And when it's 80 degrees out in the rest of my yard, it's usually about 114 here, which you would think would make these beds too hot to grow anything. But that's one myth that's been dispelled. The raised metal beds do not heat the soil up enough to make plants not grow. The plants on this side usually thrive. I've grown squash in them. In the winter, I grow kale and chard. And let me show you. And these are in a narrow space, so it's a little difficult to show you everything, but I'll show you a picture of what this bed looked like in the winter. This is what Vegega has come up with to cover their raised metal beds. So I put the Vegega plastic, their greenhouse plastic, over the top over the winter, and my vegetables did beautifully. They grew really, really well. It's really simple to use. It's got a great design, and they also have an insect netting that can go over it. I'm not going to be using the insect netting over my tomatoes because I don't really usually have any issues with insects on tomatoes. But it's a great thing to have, and it screws into the bed. It screws into the screws that are on the side of the bed, so it's really stable. I really actually enjoyed using this over the winter. Now, there's not a cover for the circular beds, and that's what I'm going to be putting in here. Right here is where I did an experiment in growing vegetables in a straw bale bed. And it worked beautifully, except for before the end of the year passed, all the straw bales had decomposed down. I didn't remove any of the straw bales, and as you can see, this is a year, yeah, almost exactly a year later, and those straw bales are just gone. They're in their compost, they're being incorporated into the soil here. This is the soil that was left over in that straw bale bed. And let's show you how we put these Vegega metal beds together and how easy it is. Now I hope the lighting is okay here. We'll see if we can show it to you up close. But the first thing I wanted to do is take the plastic covering off of the metal beds. Once I get this box open, let me show you what that looks like. Now these beds come with everything you need to put them together. You don't need any special tools. We've got the screws here, a tool to help bolt this together. We've got the protective strip for over the top so you don't cut yourself. And then we've got the bed here. Now it comes in pieces, very easy to put together, but let me show you how to get the plastic off. Now interestingly enough, this is the hardest, most time-consuming part of the entire job, is to actually get the plastic covering off of this. So there we go. Plastic covering is off this one. Let me get the rest of them done and I'll show you how we're going to put this together. Now that we've got the covering off, the first thing that I'm going to do is figure out the size of the bed, and I want to dig a little trench to put the bed into. Now I've sunk all of the rest of these beds about 2 inches into the ground. You don't need to do that. I just want them all to kind of be the same height, and I wanted them to be close to the same height as the beds that I already have, although they're not. But anyway, I want them to be the same length, so I'm going to figure out the size of this bed, where it's going to go, and then dig out my trench. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in the top and the bottom screws on each area. This is light enough that I can pick this up and carry it out of the way so that I can dig the trench to exactly where I want it. There, we've got it put together. I decided to put all the screws in because there's going to be no difference in carrying it around with all 4 screws in each side. Now I think this is one thing that distinguishes the Vegega beds from other raised metal beds, is the other raised metal beds seem to have a lot more screws in them. And for somebody like me, I don't want to be spending a lot of time screwing in double the amount of screws. Maybe it's not double, maybe there's only about 6 in the other ones. But I don't notice any problem with strength in these. They hold together. You can see these right here that have had dirt in them for a while. They're not coming apart. So 4 screws I think is plenty. Now I think all I need to do is just kind of mess around with this and with it until I feel like I've got the spacing correct. We're going to make the mark where it's supposed to go, move the bed, and then dig the trench. Now I like to try and make sure all of my beds are on automatic irrigation. And this actually was on automatic irrigation before I took this bed apart. I had it on automatic irrigation for the straw bale beds. All the rest of these beds are on automatic irrigation. So we're going to bury this pipe and bring it up on the inside of the bed so that we can set up our irrigation later. And that's going to be another video. But before we put all the soil back in, we do need to bury this pipe. And I want to do it deep enough that it does not get kinked under the bed. We don't want to kink in it where the water can't get in, and we don't want the bed cutting it. So we're going to bury it deeper than the bed. Now I could just eyeball it, see if, see how good I am at that. I'd say it's pretty good. There we go. Now, the last thing that I need to do before this video is done is we're going to finish filling this bed. This is all that we had for the topsoil. This is a topsoil that I purchased. I normally use peat, compost, and vermiculite in my raised beds, but I wanted to see what this garden topsoil would be like, and it does get pretty compacted, but it does stay wet pretty long. All the rest of these Vegega beds right here have the same topsoil in it, and they stay wet for quite a while. And this one was pretty compacted. So what we're going to do with this one is we're going to mix some compost and a little bit of peat moss in it to finish filling up the bed and to loosen it up a bit. But I will be back as soon as I've taken a little bit of a break. Okay, I got a drink, rested for a bit. Now it's time to finish filling up the bed. And let's talk to you a little bit about the mix I like to use. Now this bed contains my traditional mix. Although this one does have a little bit of perlite in it because I do bring my old potting soil down here. But I use peat, compost, and vermiculite. And the vermiculite actually helps it hold water really well. As I said before, these beds over here are a mixture of compost and topsoil. It's a mix that I purchased and brought in. I purchased it in bulk. So it looks a little bit more like soil. Now there's a lot of wood chips from the ground mixed in here, but this will be fine. We're going to add a little bit of extra nitrogen. So we're going to add some peat moss. So some of the peat moss right here, some fertilizer, and some of my mushroom compost. So that's what it looks like with the bed full. It's a nice mix, topsoil, peat, and compost. And we've got some fertilizer in here, so I think that this is going to grow some beautiful vegetables. Now we're finished with this video, but we're not finished with this project. Tomorrow, we're going to actually install a different kind of irrigation than I have. Right now, I have an irrigation system that's attached to my automatic irrigation. We've got 4 lines in each bed. It just goes off 3 times a week with the automatic irrigation. But we're going to try something new in this middle bed. Now I've hooked it up to my automatic irrigation, and the new system that I'm going to use is also going to be hooked up, but we're going to let you know what that is in the next video. Now I'd also like to say Vegega is in the middle of their Father's Day sale, and I'll put a link down below so you can go and look at what they have to offer. Now I am an affiliate of Vegega, and if you order through the link below, I will get a little bit of a commission, but that actually helps me out a lot. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. I really hope you like. I hope you share it with your friends and go have a wonderful garden adventure.